Your dog is up again at 3 in the morning, gnawing at the same back paw like it owes him money, and by the time you check on him, the fur around it is damp and a little pink. That paw did not get like that on its own, and the fix for it is probably already sitting in your kitchen right now, not on a shelf at the pet store. Before any of that goes anywhere near him, there is one thing almost every owner gets backward, and it is the exact reason the itching calms down for a few days and then comes right back. It is not about which product you buy. It is about the order you do things in, and most people do it in the wrong order without ever knowing that was the problem. If you have felt a little guilty watching him scratch, wondering if you missed something or fed the wrong thing, let that go right now. Skin problems and fleas sneak in quietly. Most owners only notice once the scratching gets loud enough to wake them up, the way it probably woke you up. The fact that you are sitting here at whatever hour this is, actually looking for an answer instead of shrugging it off, already tells you what kind of owner you are. Here is the part that trips people up. Most owners treat the itching and the fleas like two completely separate problems. One shelf for the anti-itch shampoo, another shelf entirely for the flea spray. Two different price tags, two different fights. That is how the pet store aisle is laid out, so that is how people think about it. It is not actually two problems. A huge share of everyday scratching in dogs starts as dry, under-supported skin, and that same irritated, inflamed skin is exactly the kind of surface fleas are drawn to. Fleas do not pick a healthy, well-oiled coat over an irritated one by accident. They gravitate toward the compromised one. So the itch and the flea problem are feeding off the same weak spot. Calm the skin down and you are working on both at once, which is the whole reason 3 cheap things from your kitchen can do what 2 separate expensive products were never quite pulling off. And the cheapest one on this list, the one that costs about $1 a can, is also the one most owners skip first, because it does not look like a flea solution at all. Here is the short version of what is actually happening under that fur. A diet that is a little short on the right fats leaves the skin barrier dry and mildly inflamed, and a dry, inflamed patch of skin reads to a dog as itch. Itchy skin gets scratched and licked, which breaks the surface open just enough to make it warmer and oilier. And that warm, oily, broken surface is precisely the environment fleas like best to feed and lay eggs in. Left alone, it loops. The itching invites more pests, the pests cause more itching, and after a few weeks, you have got a coat that looks dull or patchy, sometimes with small pink or scabbed spots where he has been going at it. Think of dry, cracked skin the way you would think about chapped lips in the middle of winter. Uncomfortable on its own, sure, but it also cracks the door open for more irritation to move in behind it. Skin that is kept supple from the inside closes that door before it ever opens. That is really the whole mechanism, nothing deeper than that. And it points straight at the first thing worth putting in his bowl: sardines. The plain, boring, water-packed kind sitting in the cheapest aisle of the grocery store, and they are loaded with omega-3, the healthy fat that calms inflamed skin from the inside out, like a cool compress he eats instead of wears. Here is how much and how often. For a small dog under 20 pounds, about a quarter of a sardine or 1 bite-sized piece mixed into the regular food 2 to 3 times a week. For a medium dog between 20 and 50 pounds, roughly half a sardine at that same frequency. For a large dog over 50 pounds, a whole small sardine 2 to 3 times a week. If you would rather use liquid fish oil instead of the can, follow the dosing printed on that particular bottle for his weight, since concentration varies a lot between brands, and start on the lower end for the first week just to see how his stomach handles it. Skin does not turn over overnight, so give it 3 to 6 weeks before you judge whether the coat looks any different. That is roughly how long it takes for new, calmer skin cells to actually replace the old ones. 2 things worth knowing before you open a can. Always choose sardines packed in plain water with no salt added, because the salted or oil-packed versions carry more sodium than a dog's body wants to deal with regularly. And fish oil in excess, whether from the can or the bottle, can loosen his stool or quietly stack on extra calories. So this is an addition to what he already eats, not something poured over his food without limit. If he ends up loving sardine night a little too much and starts giving you the eyes every time you open the pantry, well, that part is honestly on you now. That first sardine or 2 into his bowl might already be doing more for that itchy paw than anything you have bought in a store. And if this is the first thing on this list that actually made sense to you, That is worth a comment telling me where you are watching from. Hitting subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing, no pressure, and a like helps this information reach more owners scratching their heads over the same 3 a.m. scene you just had. Before the next two ingredients, it helps to actually know what you are looking at on him, because some of it is completely normal and some of it is not. And mixing those up is how owners either panic over nothing or ignore something worth watching. A little daytime scratching is just normal grooming. Every dog does it. What is different is scratching that actually wakes him up at night, or licking one exact spot until it stays damp. That points to something more than a passing itch, and it is worth keeping an eye on. Some shedding is also completely normal, but a coat that has gone dull, or that leaves small white flakes behind when you pet him, is usually telling you the skin underneath is dry and undernourished, rather than just due for a bath. Mild pinkness right after a scratching session is common, and it usually settles down on its own within a day. A spot that stays pink, feels warm to the touch, or seems to bother him every single time you touch it is a different story. And if it is not calming down, that one is worth a veterinary look rather than more waiting. And keep an eye out for small dark specks sitting close to the skin, often near the base of the tail or around the neck, sometimes called flea dirt. That is actually a more reliable sign of fleas than spotting an actual flea, since they move fast and hide well in a thick coat. One more pair worth knowing. Fur that looks patchy or that is coming out in small tufts exactly where he keeps chewing is different from ordinary shedding. It points to a self-inflicted irritation cycle that is not going to fix itself. And restlessness or sudden jumping up out of a comfortable lying position more than once in the same evening, especially paired with scratching, often means something on his skin is actively bothering him right at that moment, not just a dog being a dog. The second thing in your kitchen does something the sardines cannot, because it works on him from the outside while the fish is still working from the inside. Coconut oil used two ways. A small amount goes in the bowl, and a small amount gets rubbed directly onto his skin, and it earns its place on this list for a completely different reason than the sardines do. In the food, it adds a different kind of fat that supports his coat's own natural oil layer, basically his built-in raincoat. On the skin, rubbed in as a thin layer, it can sit right on the dry, flaky patches themselves. For feeding it, start small, about a quarter teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight daily. And if he handles that fine after a few days, you can work up toward half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon per 10 pounds for dogs who tolerate it well, mixed straight into his regular food. For the skin, warm a small amount between clean hands until it turns liquid, then massage a thin layer into the dry or flaky spots, paying extra attention to paws, elbows, and the belly. Once a day or every other day is plenty. Coconut oil is calorie dense, so more is genuinely not better here. Too much of it internally can cause loose stool or add unwanted weight over time, and it is worth being a little more careful if he is already prone to pancreas trouble. So keep the portions modest and just watch how his stool looks for the first few days after you start. This is exactly the kind of small routine that turned things around for a dog like Bella, and her story is worth hearing before the last, most important item on this list. Picture a dog like Bella, a mixed breed with a coat that had gone a bit dull and flaky, whose owner had started waking up around 3 in the morning to the sound of her chewing at one back paw. 2 different shampoos from the pet aisle had already come and gone with basically no change. Sardines went into her bowl twice a week, and a thin layer of coconut oil got worked into that paw most evenings. About a month in, her coat looked noticeably less dull, and the nighttime chewing had dropped off enough that her owner was actually sleeping through the night again. Her vet still got a call to rule out anything deeper going on, since a spot chewed that raw for that long was worth a second set of eyes. And the vet confirmed it was mild irritation that was already responding well to the routine at home. There was still one piece missing for Bella, though, the one item on this list that actually deals with fleas directly, instead of just calming the skin underneath them. And that is the part worth pausing on for a second, because what you just watched happen with Bella is rarely just about one paw. A sign like that, dull coat, a spot he cannot leave alone, usually does not show up completely on its own. It tends to travel with a few other small things. How well he is sleeping, his energy, his appetite, that only really makes sense once you can see them together as one picture instead of one paw at a time. Most owners never get to see that whole picture, they just react to whatever is loudest that week. That is actually the exact thing we built a free 2-minute quiz to help with. It looks at your own dog's bigger picture, not just the one sign that got your attention, and shows you where to actually start with him specifically. The link is sitting in the pinned comment, or you can scan the QR code on the screen right now. Take it after this though, because the biggest piece of what stops an actual flea problem, not just the itching around it, is still coming, and it is worth having in hand first. And to be clear, if what you are dealing with is a real established flea problem, the quiz is there to help you see the wider picture, not to replace an actual vet visit. That part still matters no matter what the quiz tells you. Here is the one most owners are the most nervous about, and it is also the one doing the heaviest lifting on the actual fleas, so it is worth being careful with. Diluted apple cider vinegar, sprayed lightly on the coat. Think of it like changing the welcome mat at your front door. Fleas read the surface of a dog's coat before they decide whether to stay, and shifting that surface with a little acidity makes it a noticeably less comfortable place to land. Mix 1 part apple cider vinegar with 3 parts water in a spray bottle. If he has any kind of sensitive skin, dilute it even further, closer to 1 part vinegar to 4 or 5 parts water, and test it on a small patch of coat first before you spray him all over. Spray lightly over the coat, keeping it well away from his eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and any patch of broken or irritated skin. Then just let it air dry. 2 to 3 times a week during flea season is plenty. Never use it full strength, not once, not on any part of him. Concentrated vinegar on a cut or an already raw patch can sting badly and actually slow down healing instead of helping it. And be honest with yourself about what this step is and is not. It is a deterrent, something that makes the coat a less inviting place to be, not a treatment for fleas already living and breeding on him. A few stray fleas you catch early is a leak you can mop up yourself. An actual infestation, multiple fleas visible, dark specks everywhere, other pets in the house affected too, is a flood, and that calls for real vet-grade flea control, not a spray bottle from the kitchen. If his skin is already sensitive, broken, or irritated, skip the vinegar step completely and reach for an oatmeal soak instead. It gets you almost the same calming effect without any acidity anywhere near raw skin. Grind plain, uncooked oats into a fine powder in a blender, then stir it into a basin of lukewarm water until the water turns milky. Let him soak or sponge it over his coat for 10 to 15 minutes. Then rinse gently and towel him dry. 2 to 3 times a week works well. It is a warm compress compared to the vinegar's wake-up call, calming instead of testing an already sore spot. While we are on the subject of what goes near him, a few things belong nowhere near this routine, no matter what some recipe online tells you. No garlic in any amount for any reason connected to fleas. Garlic and the whole onion family are genuinely toxic to dogs and can damage red blood cells, so ignore any advice that suggests it. No grapes or raisins, no xylitol, sometimes labeled birch sugar and hiding in certain peanut butters, no chocolate, no cooked bones since they splinter, and no concentrated essential oils, several of which are dangerous for dogs even in small amounts on the skin. And if his skin ever looks raw, keeps spreading, is oozing, or starts to smell off, that has moved past what any kitchen ingredient can fix. And it is time for an actual vet visit, since that can point to an infection that needs real medication. One more thing before you touch any of these 3 tonight. Do not start all of them on the same day. A dog's stomach handles one new thing at a time far better than 3 arriving in the same week. And piling on 3 new additions together is a fast way to end up with a loose stool that gets blamed on the wrong one. Think of it like handing a toddler 5 new snacks all at once. Someone is cleaning up a mess by dinner. A simple week-by-week approach works better. Sardines or fish oil into the food for the first week. Coconut oil in the bowl and on the skin, added in during week 2 once his stomach has settled into the first change. Then the vinegar spray or the oatmeal soak, whichever fits his skin, brought in during week 3. Doing it this way also makes it a lot easier to notice which piece is actually the one making the difference. A coat that looks dull is often an early flag for a diet running a little short on the right fats overall, not just a skin-only problem, and it is worth thinking about the whole picture rather than one paw. Constant scratching and licking eats into a dog's sleep just as much as it eats into yours, and skin that gets chewed raw and left alone can turn into an infection that needs a much bigger vet visit than the original itch ever would have. None of that is meant to scare you. It is just the honest shape of what happens if this gets ignored instead of handled early, while it is still cheap and simple to deal with. So that is the full picture. Sardines or fish oil going in through the bowl to calm things down from the inside. Coconut oil working the same job from the outside while feeding him something useful too. And diluted apple cider vinegar, or the oatmeal soak if his skin needs the gentler option, making his coat a place fleas do not want to stick around. Rotate them in one at a time. Watch for the signs that mean it is time to call the vet instead of trying one more home remedy, and give the skin the 3 to 6 weeks it actually needs to show you a real difference. Drop a comment telling me which of these 3 your own dog already refuses to cooperate with: the sardines, the coconut oil, or the spray bottle. Almost every dog has strong feelings about exactly one of them. If this saved you a trip to the pet store, subscribing helps, and that free 2-minute quiz is still waiting for you in the pinned comment or the QR code on screen whenever you are ready for it. For now, picture him finally asleep on his side, paw still, not a single scratch for the whole night, because that is genuinely the goal here, one quiet night at a time.